We're hosting this press conference to make our intentions clear. Our intent from the very formation of our organization to today is to march within sight and sound of the Republican National Convention. Our intent is to run a family-friendly march, fully organized by the coalition. The city of Milwaukee, specifically the police, seem to have different plans. Plans that they continue to rush through committees and commissions, often leaving no time for public input or concern. This is best shown in their unfortunately successful attempt to suspend SOP 575 for the duration of the RNC. This is a policy that would have allowed us to be able to see footage of critical incidents within 15 days and 2 days for those impacted by it. The suspension was pushed through closed session meetings and did not allow for public comment before the Fire and Police Commission voted to suspend it. More recently, they're attempting to push through a policy related to the allocation of the permits for the RNC. Nothing in this policy allows us to do what we've intended to do from the very start, and we've made clear to the city what we intend to do from the very start. Through this policy, the police are attempting to control who gets to speak and who doesn't. They are also trying to keep us a quarter mile away from the venue, which maintains us outside of sight and sound for the convention. I'm going to voice a gentle reminder that our coalition has signed a retainer with the American Civil Liberties Union to defend our right to protest. The city has continuously engaged in a practice of showing no transparency to the community. The city has actively prevented us from being able to have a say in how we want things done, and has instead prioritized the wishes of Republicans both state and nationwide. Specifically, the mayor has been trying to come up with this just silver platter of Milwaukee to the Republicans. Most notably, the city has prioritized the wishes of thousands of outside agitators, all of which are coming from different law enforcement agencies across the country. This is not the spirit of protecting our First Amendment rights. The city is practically begging for a lawsuit at this point in time. To extend our demands in response to this ordinance that puts the wishes of outside agitators first, we demand a permit for the whole day of July 15th. We demand control over the speakers, agenda, mic, and content at our rally, and we demand to be within sight and sound. We demand that the permit is granted by April 1st. If any of the media needs this statement in writing, we'd be happy to send it over to you. Just feel free to send out an email. It's on the press release, and I'll also be taking any questions at this time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can sort of talk through what this process looks like in terms of the RNC committee, what their recommendation is to the Public Works Committee that's about to happen. If you can kind of talk us through that.
Yeah, so we became aware of this ordinance being pushed through about 2 weeks ago or so. Unfortunately, we weren't able to really get to the meeting until very last minute, and they had decided to host this special meeting to further discuss and kind of rush the process of passing this ordinance. And so at this point, they're going to be hosting a closed session meeting today to where community cannot have any input and community cannot hear what's happening. And so, again, I mean, a lot of us are from organizations that have, battled with the city on many different things. And what they continuously tell us is that, these processes, they take time. And you're just going to have to wait. And even though there's a lot of community in support of this, we're going to have to take our time. We've seen the opposite approach when it comes to the Republican National Convention. We've seen that the RNC committee run by the city has basically been getting full privilege to do whatever they want. And honestly, it's headed by police officers. Nick Desiato, for example, was just very recently working for the police department and is now working as, I forget the exact position, but I think it's like chief of staff for the mayor. And so, they've been trying to tell us that they're trying to keep this out of the police, the Milwaukee Police Department, but really the people leading the committee are completely either loyal or a part of the police department. And so that is not what we've been asking for. We've been asking, again, to be within sight and sound and to have full control over our protest as our First Amendment rights allow us to. And, no, please.
The ordinance specifically references sight and sound, so can you tell me how you're differentiating that?
Oh yeah, actually that's a really good question. So what they consider to be sight and sound is within sight and sound of the security perimeter, not within sight and sound of the Pfizer form. And so within sight and sound of the security perimeter keeps us still a fourth mile away from the Pfizer form. And so I guess maybe unless you have an extremely impressive sound system and I don't know, maybe just have like a giant banner, I don't think that's really technically within sight and sound.
organizations, or have you met with anyone from the city?
They have refused to formally meet with us. A lot of what they've been doing has just been either behind closed doors or rushed through these committees or commissions. The times that we have talked with the city is when they've, the police department specifically has hosted community meetings. And there it's basically just like a one-directional type of thing. They're basically just telling us things. We tell them we don't want that, and then they do it anyway. And so that's not like really like a genuine gathering of like community input.
On the city's website, I was looking this morning, and it said that they were going to have like time slots for people to sign up, whether it's for a stage area that they plan to set up or for a parade route. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you guys would be interested in, or do you want the whole day, you said?
Yeah, we want the whole day, just because, I mean, anyone that's ever organized a rally knows that that's not necessarily how it works, like with, you know, specific time slots at a specific time of day. Also, I mean, we don't know who could maybe get to the website before us, you know, even though we've been asking for this permit from the day that this convention was announced. I mean, it could be anyone from out of town that decides that they want to come up and speak. You know, this would really not prioritize the people that have actually been on the ground and organizing things here. And they do have a stage set up, and that stage is set up, that quarter mile that I was talking about, that stage is set up a quarter mile outside of the venue that the Republicans will be hosting their convention.
So you want to be at the podium, not on the parade route?
Their parade route is also outside of sight and sound of the RNC, so that's not what we're looking to do. Any parade route that allows us to be within sight and sound is one that we would accept. Any ordinance that allows us to run things exactly the way that we want to. Again, a lot of us have been organizers here for years. We've been hosting family-friendly protests for years now. There's no reason to believe that we would be doing anything that wouldn't be considered family-friendly. And so, again, like, we should have full control over what we're deciding to do. The police, for example, said that they won't allow any organizations that have a history of advocating for violence or inciting violence. And, you know, for them, I mean, that definition might be very broad. Who they consider to be causing violence and what they consider violence is very different from what people on the ground would be considering violence. And so we don't feel like the police should be able to have free reign over who gets to speak or not. That should be up to us. Honestly, that type of stipulation, I feel like, is begging for a lawsuit.
And you had said that you guys have retained someone for a potential lawsuit?
Yeah, we've worked directly with the ACLU to defend our First Amendment rights, and so if there's anything with this ordinance that doesn't seem like it's legal or even seems legally dubious, we would be able to go through the ACLU to challenge that.
Is there a specific place that you would, you know, if you had your choice of where you want to be? I mean, obviously within sight of the venue, but is there
If it was up to me, we would be right up at the doors, and they would be able to hear us directly and not even through a microphone. Of course, you know, that might not be realistic, but that would be ideal for us, anything within sight and sound. And so right in front of the Pfizer, for example, or, you know, they're going to be at the Wisconsin Center as well, right in front of the Wisconsin Center. We were able to do this for the March on the DNC, and even though that was pretty scaled down, that's something that we would still seek to have happen.
I understand that the city of Chicago has just been sued recently because of something similar. Is that something that you guys are looking at?
Most definitely, yeah. We actually work directly with the Coalition of March on the DNC. We have endorsed that coalition as well. And so, yeah, I mean, we've definitely been trading notes, and you know, unfortunately, the city kind of forces your hand after a point. Again, this has been an argument for 2 years. We've made our intentions clear. We've followed the formal process for applying for a permit, and again, they just kind of want to shift goalposts. They want to, again, roll out the red carpet for the Republican National Convention instead of running things in a way that is putting the community first. So.
do you have an idea how many people might show up here?
Well, we recently held a national organizing conference here in Milwaukee at the African American Women's Center. Just for a conference to discuss organizing, we had around 250 people show up here in Milwaukee from around the country. And so, I mean, if that's just the organizers, we could expect that they're bringing people from their organizations, probably, you know, 50 to 100 more each organization. We're expecting several thousands to show up here for the protest.
I guess when they had their last committee meeting on the issue of defining who has committed violence in the past, you know, the groups that were coming up were like KKK, Proud Boys. How do you think about the question of how to, who to allow, right?
Well, that's not for the city to decide, and it's not for the cops to decide. That's for us to decide as organizers that have been doing this for the past 2 years. What the city considers to be hate speech or not, honestly, I don't trust it. Because, I mean, they have 3%ers in the police force. I mean, you know, I cannot really trust what they have to say about who's hateful or not. And so I think that should be fully left up to the organizers. Again, these are people that have developed trust with the community. These are people that have been around for years. It's not only me that trusts other organizers, you know, it's also the community here in Milwaukee. You know, I would bet any day that, you know, if somebody had to choose between trusting a police officer from outside of Milwaukee versus a community organizer, they would choose the community organizer every time.
So you're not necessarily wanting to like be at the podium the whole day, but you're wanting to be able to say who can be at the podium.
Sure, yeah, and at a podium at a location that where we decide, to be clear. Yeah, we want full say, full direction, as we always do. There's no reason to not allow us to be able to do that this time around.
Is there any sort of final message that you have to the leaders that are sort of making these ultimate decisions?
Yeah, honestly, I think that the city has been extremely short-sighted in what they're trying to do right now. I think it's leaving a bad taste in the mouth of not only organizers, but like the rest of the community. There's a lot of people here in Milwaukee that didn't want the RNC here in the first place, and now they're adding insult to injury by passing these policies that nobody has proposed from the community, that nobody really cares for in the community, and that they're rushing through, just completely avoiding any kind of public democracy. And so, honestly, I think it's a huge warning sign for what's to come. I think people are going to be justifiably pretty upset, and again, I think honestly the city is begging for a lawsuit. And so I think that if they don't want that to happen, they need to change paths. I mean, especially with the city facing insolvency, the last thing that they could afford is another large settlement. And so I guess that would be my message to the city, is that, you know, we've had the same demands for a very long time. It's very short and very simple, and there's no reason to not abide by these demands. Any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you everyone for showing up today. Again, if you have any questions, my phone number is on the initial email that we sent out, and also our email. And so